wanted to share some great news with you. We got our Moser parts in today, and James will be installing the new axle and the C-Clip Eliminators later on in the video. And also we went ahead and got the AC done in here, so it is, as you can see, the garage door is all insulated, and we insulated the attic as well, and the AC is going in here, so while it may be 110 outside, it is a nice cozy 75-ish, 78 here in the garage.
Okay, well, it was pretty splendid of Wanda to volunteer me to put her new axles in. But anyways, I just finished one side, putting these Moser axles in with the C-Clip Eliminators and getting ready to start the other side. I wanted to do one side first before I filmed it, show you guys the methods that need to be done, tricks, shortcuts, things that get in the way, etc. I always laugh at some of the other YouTube videos that you watch people do installs and it goes flawlessly and they never have any problems. Obviously they're doing a test run first and then filming it for you guys. I'd rather kind of try to show you what you are going to run into that can cause some complications or things that you have to work around. So I'm going to move to the other side, get this camera set up, and show you guys what it takes. All right, so I'm over on the passenger side of the car now. This is where we're going to do the other axle install. As you can see, when you take the brake backing plate off, you have a little bit of an extra nose that sticks off the rear end. Changes lighting around so you can see a little better. There we go. Anyways, in the Moser instructions, it says that you need to cut this off to where 1/8 of an inch is sticking out from the backing plate to the nose there. When you do that, if you look real close, you can see there's a ledge. That ledge is exactly 1/8 of an inch, so it's going to be just enough for your brake backing plate to stick up against where it bolts onto the rear end housing. So really all you have to do is just cut right along that line right there. Just cut all the way around. Go slow. It's always better to try to cut nice and clean and have to come back and grind and clean up later. One of the other things I highly recommend is stuffing a rag down in your tube ahead of time. It'll help stop any of the metal shavings from getting inside. That way when you pull the rag out, any kind of shavings will pull out as well. I'm going to go ahead and get set up with the grinder and get to cutting. I will mention before I grind a couple other items. As you can see, I got a piece of tin up back behind the rear end housing, the axle tube housing, to help deflect any possible grind embers from going anywhere near the fuel tank. For safety people, I have removed the safety guard from the grinder, but you can't really get in there close enough with that in the way. So kids, I don't recommend you do this at home. Most importantly, make sure you wear your eye protection while you're doing this. I'll be fast forwarding through this other part, so that way you don't have to sit and watch me grind. I'll be going real slow and trying to make as precise a cut as possible. All right, so as you can see, we've got the snub of the axle shaft cut off, got it trimmed down to exactly 1/8 of an inch. That will be just enough for the backing plate to rest on there while you try to line everything up. Pull my rag out, got all the metal filings out from the inside. Don't forget that tip, otherwise it leaves quite a mess in there. All right, next up, once you get your snub cut off the end of the axle tube down to 1/8 of an inch, you want to make sure that your brake backing plate is clean on both sides. It's going to be your mounting surface back onto the axle tube and for the C-Clip Eliminator to mount up against the backing plate here. One piece I'd like to address, this emergency brake spreader bar right here, it will actually get in the way of the C-Clip Eliminator housing. And in Moser's directions, they basically tell you that you need to give it a light tap with a hammer. They don't exactly say where to tap or how much to tap or how far to tap. In this case, since this car is primarily going to be a track car, drag race only, there's no need for an emergency brake. So I've gone ahead and pulled out the emergency brake pedal and cable all the way back. hence the spreader bar won't be needed anymore. Because the way it works basically is your cable comes through the bottom here, it pulls on this pad. This bar gives it something to pull against, otherwise there's nothing for it to pull. So when that pulls, it pulls against this, and that's what locks the brake pad into the drum, and it essentially acts as your emergency brake or parking brake. We're not going to need that, so I'm going to go ahead and take that spreader bar out, so I don't have to worry about giving it a light tap, as Moser indicated, and that should give me plenty of clearance for getting a C-Clip Eliminator in there. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and they give you some silicone with the kit, clear silicone. I prefer to use the right stuff. I've never had any problems with it. I use it on everything, valve covers, oil pans, anything that I want to make sure stays sealed. I've always used the right stuff. So if you have your own favorite, by all means go ahead and use that. If you haven't ever used the right stuff, I would highly recommend trying to use that. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything right stuffed up and go ahead and get this lined up for install. Alright, so I've got the brake backing plate on with the right stuff on the back of the backing plate going up against the axle tube housing. And then I have a generous amount of right stuff spread around the inside of the C-Clip Eliminator. So I'm going to slide it in now to the axle tube housing. And one trick that I did learn, I'm not sure we can't get good focus today. One thing that I did learn when I did the other side is that it actually works better if you pull the backing plate away from the housing and get the bolts started in the C-Clip Eliminator first, and then slide it all onto the housing as one unit. Trying to make sure all three are lined up at the same time, it just doesn't seem to line up. So go ahead and get that going now. Alrighty, so as you can see, if you could see very clearly with me being in the way, once you pull the backing plate away from the actual rear end housing, you're able to line up the bolts and get them started in the C-Clip Eliminator, and then slide it all as one unit onto the 1/8 lip that you left cut from the rear axle tube housing, and then you're able to just snug everything up. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up, get it buttoned up, put the brake line back on, and get the tires and rims back on, and this part of the job is done.